there. I'm Andy Powers with Taylor Guitars, and you're here at my house workshop. You're in the old barn behind where I do a lot of our development work. And I've got this guitar here that we've made that we're real proud to be introducing. This is a 324 Builder's Edition guitar. Now some of you might be familiar with the Builder's Edition concept that we introduced a few years ago. And the idea there is it's a guitar that is built to sound better and feel better. I mean, when I think of how you can make a guitar better as a builder, well, it's going to come to sound and feel. I mean, sure, you want it to look right, but as an acoustic machine, you're trying to build something that has a lot of musical value for a musician. So this guitar, it's built on our Grand Auditorium body shape with the V-Class architecture inside. One of the very exciting parts about this particular instrument is it marks a kind of a new chapter in forward-thinking forestry for us. Now, for a number of years, we've been working on projects that they're forestry conservation projects where we're propagating species for future generations of instrument use. We're conserving what is there. We're trying to maintain the health of forests and improve them in a lot of ways. One common theme with a lot of those projects is that they're very long-term in their scope. I mean, this might be a project that's 25 years out or 50 years, even 100 years from now, we'll be looking at these different forests and going, man, we're glad we did that work. And so that's wonderful, but in the meantime, well, we still want to be building great instruments. So one of the avenues that we've started exploring is what you could describe as urban forestry. The back and sides on this guitar are made with a new species for us. This is a wood that we first were introduced to a couple of years ago as part of this project. Now, you'll probably ask, what is an urban forest? It sounds like an oxymoron. And what that amounts to is wherever you are in the world, if you're in a city, you notice on the side of city streets or in parks or along the roadways, there are trees planted there on purpose for maybe a windbreak or maybe a sound barrier or just for their beauty. Well, the reality is, like all living things, they'll come to the end of their lifespan. You know, for a city tree, it might become too large and then, has a risk of falling over in a storm and whatnot. So those trees are maintained and oftentimes taken out and replaced with other trees. Well, typically, that wood is mulched up. It's just ground up in place and is left to become soil. So you're taking a large tree that had some value as timber and turning it into the lowest value wood product. Well, some years ago, Bob Taylor and I became interested in that, and with the thought that if we had been working as guitar makers hundreds of years ago, we wouldn't have the luxury of traveling halfway around the world to find some slim little slice out of an exotic timber from who knows where. That just isn't an option for us. But what we would have the option of is to look around us and see, well, what materials are growing right here? What do we have access to? And so if you take that idea and put it into a modern context, you end up with this concept where you look around in every city throughout the world, there are all kinds of trees growing. Some of those can actually make great sounding guitars. So we've teamed up with an arborist who manages a lot of the city trees throughout the state of California. And we started testing and researching and designing instruments specifically to use those timbers. This is the first time that we're introducing it. So this is a wood that we call urban ash. It's known more commonly around here as chamois ash. It's an evergreen ash species that originated from the same part of the world that the Honduras and tropical mahogany that you're familiar with. So this wood ends up having a very similar density, weight, sonic characteristics to woods that we already know and love. And in this case, has become one of our very favorite timbers. So this particular guitar is our first time in using that. So it's something we're very proud of and very excited to be introducing. This guitar I've got here is been something that we've been working on for a number of years now. It's an 816 model that we've added to our Builder's Edition collection. Now it has a couple of striking features. The most obvious thing that's new is what I would describe as a soundport cutaway, kind of with a bit of a question mark there. You know, oftentimes people will ask a question like, well, does having a cutaway take away from the sound of my guitar? Well, in this case, this one is creating the sound of this guitar. Now, we're familiar with guitars that have secondary sound ports and different things in the design. And this one is taking that idea but kind of twisting it into a new dimension. Now, the genesis for this idea, it came from working with our V-class architecture. You know, if you look at the world of Taylor guitars and you're looking at, say, our classic Grand Auditorium shape or the newer Grand Pacific shape that we've built and introduced about a year ago, we have this other guitar, the Grand Symphony body shape. And dimensionally, those guitars are actually pretty similar to each other. Like if I put a ruler or a tape measure across it, and you measure, you know, the width of the bout and whatnot, they're not terribly different from each other. They fall into that sort of middle range in the world of small, medium, and large. And as a builder, I never want to be building something simply to fill out, you know, a line on maybe a price list or a spreadsheet or something like that. It's not just a model. Every guitar that we build has a musical purpose. It has a reason to live. It needs to fill some musical need for a musician. So as we were adapting our V-class architecture across different models and different body shapes, I took a fresh look at our Grand Symphony shape and went, well, this has some unique attributes. It has, in between those dimensions, it has a unique set of curves that give it a lot of what I consider like the lung power, the lung capacity. It's the power of the air that's inside that body. And I wanted to capitalize on that. In the past, like I mentioned, we're all familiar with guitars that have multiple sound ports. And for me, that's oftentimes posed a problem. I've built a number of guitars like that, but I had a difficult time adapting it to the type of projection and the level of tuning accuracy that I would get, because you can end up with some undesirable side effects if you're not real careful with that. So working from the V-class architecture, I built this guitar that has a tremendous amount of power, a beautiful sustain, very accurate notes, but I can make this sound propagate in a different way by adding the secondary sound port, not at a right angle relationship to the sound hole, but at an angle. So it disperses the sound in a different way. It's an interesting experience as a player because the way that sound kind of emanates from this guitar feels like you're kind of enveloped, you're surrounded by this sound that you're making. It's like an immersive experience. So this is something that we're real thrilled to be making an offering to musicians because it's a totally different experience than so many of the guitars we're already familiar with. This is a 912 Builder's Edition. It's a 912 cutaway guitar, and as you might be familiar with our K14 and some of the other Builder's Edition guitars that we've added to our collection, this is the first time that we've adopted one into the Grand Concert body size. So this is based around the smallest guitar model that we make. With this contoured cutaway and armrest, it ends up as a very ergonomically friendly guitar. It's a very compact, very kind of intimate feeling instrument. Now this is also one of the first times that we've adopted this bit of woodworking, this fancy cutaway with East Indian rosewood for the back and sides, Lutz spruce on top, ultra fast playing neck, a relatively short scale length. So this is a kind of a real fun, like progressive player's instrument. Based on the smaller body size, it has this very dynamic but very quick feeling response. It's almost like a fast transient response that you might see on like a small diaphragm condenser mic. Something where the whole guitar responds so quickly to the player's voice and the player's touch. So this is something that we're real thrilled to be introducing. And yeah, we're very proud of it. So we've been adapting our V-class internal architecture throughout a lot of different guitar models. And along the way, this particular guitar was something we dreamed up as a particularly special instrument to play. We've got the armrest and this contoured beveled cutaway for high fingerboard access, but we've paired it with a 12-fret neck onto our smallest grain concert body. Now, this is a curly maple and spruce instrument, again built around our V-class architecture. Now, as a player, when I think of a 12-string and the different ways that I might use it, it's often as a layer. It's a part playing instrument. I love playing electric 12-string guitars, and I like acoustic 12 strings, but I don't often need both. A lot of times when I listen to the sounds, it's not necessarily easy to identify as an electric 12-string or an acoustic. So I built an instrument that's voiced to sort of blend those two. Now, obviously, this is an acoustic guitar. It's hollow box, round hole, nothing terribly surprising there. But the type of voice that comes out of it, in some ways, is more fitting to what you would have heard on a Beatles record or a Tom Petty record or something like that. So it has this really unique approach. We've also adopted the electric style reverse stringing, where the low fundamental string is the first string you strike on your downstroke. So depending on your technique and how you play the guitar, you'll actually hear more of the fundamental 12-string or a 6-string sound, but with this added 12-string richness put into that mix. So this is a really special instrument and one we're really thrilled to be building. Hope you guys check it out.